why on earth is her first instinct to grab her
Shotgun.
shotgun and just like gun down these rats like one by one? Like she creates a whole like 20 rounds in her ceiling just to kill like a rat. Like,
Yeah, I mean, she brings the roof down, doesn't she?
and then
Like,
later on, like she runs outside while it's pouring down and she's got like this personal vendetta against these rats just to kill them. Like,
oh yeah,
who does that?
as they're running away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rewatch podcast. My name is Jaden,
And my name is Samuel.
and this is a podcast where we rewatch classic or current films, and then we decide whether they deserve a rewatch from you, the listener. Before we begin, a like on this video would be most appreciated, and you could also subscribe if you would like. If you're tuning on Spotify or another major podcast app, you can find us on YouTube by searching The Rewatch. What did we watch this week, Samuel?
So this week we watched Ratatouille, an animated Pixar film. We've done quite a few of those so far in season one, but we're back. I feel like this is one of your favorites, Jaden.
Yeah, without giving away too much, I do like this film. Yeah.
Yes, you suggested to watch this film,
Yeah.
and to be honest, I mean we've reviewed Monsters Inc. and I said I think when we reviewed that one that it was sort of like the long lost movie of the Pixar films. Like it doesn't get as much attention as the Cars or the Toy Story. But if
truly,
Monsters Inc. doesn't get much attention, then this film, Ratatouille, is like lost in time.
I feel like so many people forget about this film, which is just
it does not come to mind.
That's just like so unfair because this is like the most underrated animated film of all time, in my opinion.
I think that's a fair statement. Yeah, for sure. I think when you think of Pixar films, Ratatouille isn't the one that pops up.
No.
And obviously there hasn't been a sequel to this.
No,
But it's sort of like Monsters Inc. in how it ends. It sort of ends so perfectly that they couldn't really do a sequel, even if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Actually, to be honest, I imagine, nowadays, if they were to make this, they could have a sequel coming the next year. Like, you can just create extra complications, but it does end so nicely.
I don't want them to touch it. I don't,
for sure.
I don't want another film branching off from this absolute classic. No, it's just a shame that most people forget about this film. I don't want to reveal too much, but yeah, I really enjoy this film and I've watched it multiple times. And that's all I'm going to say about it until the end. And, we'll get into our overall rating and all of that.
I will say, I had no idea that people love this movie so much.
Really?
Obviously, like both of us like to review things on Letterboxd, which is like a movie app, and lots of other people on there. This has a 4.1 star average, and so many people are giving this 5 stars. Like, the most popular reviews at 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5, 4, 5. Like it's someone said like a cinematic masterpiece here.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's in a 1001 greatest films.
I think it's a 4.4 on Letterboxd. Correct me if I'm wrong.
But it's a 4.1 now.
It's a 4.1, yeah. So most of your high regarded films in cinema, your Dark Knight trilogy, the Godfather films, a lot of your, even your original trilogy Star Wars films are going to be your 4.4 ratings. Not even them are going to
get that's like 5 best of all time.
Yeah, so
I think the Godfather's
the best.
Yeah, the Godfather is about like 4.4. I think that's about as high as you can get.
Yeah,
that's
peak cinema as well.
Yeah. Because obviously I love Letterboxd as a platform because anybody can give a review and it actually affects the actual actual score there.
Yeah.
So for example, like our reviews have affected the average because we've put them in, and so to have this sitting on a 4.1, if you take into account the amount of trolls who've given it like half a star, or there's 300 people who've given it half a star, but it takes into account all of the averages, so therefore it's almost like impossible to get 5 stars. So 4.1 is a damn good rating. I think only a few animated movies would top that, to be honest.
Yeah, I even think, some of your standout Pixar films, Cars and Toy Story are going to be around that rating as well. So Ratatouille is definitely up there with them.
For sure, yeah. So story overview for this film, pretty simple premise. A rat who can cook makes an unusual alliance with a young kitchen worker at a famous restaurant. That's what IMDb says. Essentially, it's one of those movies where an unlikely character has an unlikely talent in an unlikely environment, and thus we have an unlikely movie. And perhaps one of the reasons why this film doesn't get much attention is because the main protagonist is literally a rat, and thus it's sort of hard to get emotionally attached to a rat. But I see in your review you said something a bit different, Jaden. So perhaps
I reviewed this quite a while ago, and I'm thinking of updating it. But yeah, I think I said something like I didn't know how I could get emotionally attached to a rat, but man, I love this film so much, and I feel like it's a shame because everyone really likes the Toy Stories and Cars and Monsters Inc. and all your your A+ animated films that Pixar has produced, but a lot of the time Ratatouille just gets left in the shadow, and it's a real shame because the film should definitely be up there with them. Without revealing too much, I think it's just a lot of people don't really understand the film, because Pixar is known for doing unique films, right? They've tested their luck with people, cars. I mean, who would have thought of that? And toys that could talk. So they're doing unique stuff, and I think a rat that can cook. I mean, what were they smoking when they decided to make it? I mean, it's the weirdest idea, right? But
yeah, it's one of the first things I wrote down. Like, who on earth came up with this idea?
Yeah,
like I want to see the board meeting. Like, what year is this? 2007. Pixar,
2006.
Head of production. Oh, sorry, I've got 2007.
I think it might be 2006. I'm not sure.
Yeah, either or. But so they're sitting around before this movie was created. The heads of one of the biggest animated studios in the world are sitting down in their suits, and they're thinking, brainstorming, what next film can we do? And someone says, how about Toy Story 3? And they're like, promising. And then the next guy stands up and says, what about a rat who can cook? And they're like, you know what? That's the one we're going
for. We're doing that one.
Can you imagine? That would just not happen nowadays, would it?
It's a shame that the movie industry's turned to that, right? Turned to, rehashing Toy Story films, because we've seen enough of them, and they're coming out with a Lightyear film now, which, I mean, make original stuff. That's what makes Pixar so good. So them making this film, I'm so glad that they did it, because if they hadn't done it, I mean, look at what we would have had. Probably like 5 Toy Story films.
Yeah. 5. Yeah, probably like too many Toy Story films.
Exactly.
But yeah, so quickly I want to mention as well, this film did take home the Oscar for Best Animated Film of the Year of 2008. So 2008 awards for the 2007 film. So another nomination that I want to give a shout out to in that category was Surf's Up. I don't know if you remember that film.
Oh, I love Surf's Up.
It was such a funny film.
I love that film.
With the penguins surfing. Brilliant. But I think Ratatouille deserves to take home that category there.
I really want to do Surf's Up now. I love that film.
I wouldn't have seen. I probably would have only seen that once, and it would have been, probably at least a decade ago, probably.
Yeah, you need to watch that again. That's got a really good meaning to it. Yeah.
So Brad Pitt, not Brad Pitt, rather, Brad Bird. So he was the director of this film.
Interesting note. You might be bringing this up now. Do you know what Brad Bird has done in the past?
I've just clicked on it, and some incredible films there, aren't there?
He also voiced Edna Mode in The Incredibles.
Oh, what?
Yeah. And I think he directed The Incredibles as well. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So he was a writer, director of The Incredibles. And same goes with The Iron Giant, which is just like a cult classic. I think he's also been involved in obviously been involved in lots of other Pixar films as sort of like a creative team member.
Yeah. No, he's quite prominent with Pixar. He's done a lot of stuff with them.
Definitely made some of the best ones. Obviously, Incredibles and Ratatouille, and also known for Incredibles 2 as well. He did that one as well. So wanted to give a shout out to him because I'd say a lot of people think on Letterboxd one of the best animated directors out there, and that's that seems like a valid statement. With Incredibles and Ratatouille under his belt, so yes, wanted to give a shout out to him. But sort of generally, I think of this film is that one of its weakness is the fact that it is a rat, and a lot of people would find it quite hard to become attached to such a rat. But obviously you don't think that's much of an issue.
No, that's why I find it quite not frustrating, but annoying that people degrade a film because they don't connect with the character, right? I mean, Pixar's doing something completely different, and they're not focusing on some human story. I mean, they're trying something else, and when people just bash on the film because it's a rat, it's like, I think you're looking at the negatives of the film for the wrong reason. Like, I'm going to admit,
Jaden's coming out swinging.
Yeah,
he's coming out swinging.
I'm going to admit, there's things wrong with this film, but in reality, I think this is one of the Pixar's best pieces that they've ever made. So I honestly think it stands up there, with Toy Story and Cars and all of them.
Okay, yeah. When the thing is, like, if someone was to say to me, like, what's the most iconic scene in Ratatouille, personally, I would have no idea what to say. Whereas if you said, like, what's the most iconic scene in Cars? Well, it's the final race with Lightning McQueen pushing, Mr. King. And, what's the iconic scene in Toy Story 3? Well, it's the final part where he says, so long, partner. And there are other things as well. And so
I understand that, but like,
personally for me, when watching it again, I've probably seen this movie a couple times, but haven't seen it in a long time. So I was interested in going back to it, but watching it again, I was sort of like, well, I don't really, perhaps you could picture some of those iconic scenes that you think do stand up against, the Cars and the Toy Story.
Well, yeah, I would argue that there are scenes, but again, does having iconic scenes make a movie good? I mean, I think more as iconic scenes as being nostalgic pieces that you remember from your childhood, or things that stand out in the film that make them great. I think Ratatouille is just a great film all the way through, and that every part of it is great. So you're not really going to have pieces throughout the film that stand above others in particular.
Okay. But if you could, like, obviously this is one of your favorites. So if you could, like, what's your favorite scene of, perhaps, with the best, character development, or, what's your favorite scene in the film? Yeah.
I think the point where we see Anton Ego get a flashback of his childhood, I think that's quite iconic.
Oh yes, that is good. Yeah,
and also probably the ending scene as well, where we have Le Festin playing, and we see Remy cooking, and then we see Anton Ego all happy. I like the transition of his character throughout this film. I think it was great.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
but yeah, there's many more I could name, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I think the best part of this film for me was was it the Anton Ego, is that his name? The food
Yeah,
critic?
yeah.
Um, yeah, it was his storyline. Yeah, I think that was the best part of the entire film for me, to be honest.
Mm.
Because I really liked his character arc there and his little backstory. Because we got a bit of a piece of his backstory. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. But yeah, in terms of like Remy's backstory, so Remy the rat, um, I sort of, it was good, but to me, it wasn't, nothing really spectacular in terms of, how am I feeling for this rat? Like, do I really want him to succeed at being a chef, or do I want him to go back to just being a normal rat? And there's sort of like a hint for like humans don't treat rats like equals,
Yep.
and that's a bad thing. And it's sort of hard to get on side with that because they're rats. It's like, so you want to live in a world where like rats and humans are like equal? I mean, like, is that what the film's trying to say at one stage? Like, I don't know. It was
I
a bit,
think the main message of this film is anyone can cook. So
yeah.
yeah, this film does violate workplace health and safety, right? But at the same time, I think it's strongly pushing the message that yeah, anyone can cook. I think that's the overarching theme of this film. I don't think it's rats should stand alongside humans. It sounds bad saying it, right? I mean, theoretically, every animal should have the same rights. Animals' right activist Jaden coming out here. No, I mean rats are an infestation animal, and we typically tend to kill them. But I think this film is quite eye opening in a way where you know, anyone can cook, and it's funny that they use a rat to portray this perspective. I think it's quite a funny way of doing it, but it worked really well in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it is a sort of, one of those wacky stories where I think Pixar a lot of the time are just trying to, remind us that we're all equal. Even though, like, you think, like, at this time and, in previous years of, the controversies that have come out of Pixar of, the management of their employees and, and all sorts of allegations with executives. But the stories that they tell are often, trying to portray this equal world where everyone is more kind to each other and compassionate and just trying to drill in the message that we're all the same and we should respect each other and treat others how we want to be treated. That's a Disney quote from Bambi. Yeah, I think
It
so.
might be, yeah.
Yeah. So they're always sort of trying to tell those sort of wholesome stories, and I think this one does quite a good job at it. But in terms of like anyone can cook, like, I don't know, is that an inspirational thing? Like,
Yeah,
anyone can cook?
yeah.
Was it perhaps there was a time where, well, I guess if you look at you know history, it was seen that females were the ones to do the cooking, but now it's saying like anyone can cook. But I think now it's like, well, yeah, of course anyone can cook, but perhaps at this time there wasn't such a ideology. Like, what's the go there with the whole anyone can cook thing? What's that trying to say?
I think it's just trying to inspire younger generations to get into cooking. I mean,
Mm,
I don't really, I don't really know. I think just looking at it simply, the theme of this film is that anyone can cook. So, if you want to learn how to cook, here's the inspiration for it. You can do it.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I mean that's the basis of it. I mean, it's a weird theme to choose, right? Most of the time, Pixar's like you said, establishing how to be nice to others, right?
Mm,
We don't really see these sort of niche messages and themes all that often. and then when Pixar pulls out one where it says anyone can cook, you're kind of drawn back from it, and you're kind of weirded out from it because you don't see it all that often in cinema. But there is a big market for food out there. Food's one of the leading industries in the world, so I think it's a smart move that they did a movie on it. But again, they don't have to do a movie on it in the future. I think this perfectly summarizes that.
It is an interesting message to say anyone can cook, because it's already quite narrow in terms of, if you can compare it to a film like Cars, for example, where anyone can be a good sport, right? That's the message of Cars, sort of. And that's definitely a broader theme that can be taken in all forms of life, whereas this is just anyone can cook. It's definitely a lot more narrow. I'd say that
it is more narrow. It's more niche, but again, they've done your really basic stuff so much through their Toy Stories, their Cars, their Monsters Inc. They've done that many times, so I think they had to eventually switch it up with a different one, which is what we got through Ratatouille. Yeah,
fair enough. Changing the subject, did you find a bloody Pizza Planet truck in this one?
No, I think this is the only film that doesn't actually have one.
Oh, well, thank God, because I didn't.
No, I don't think they had it in this film for some reason.
It would have been quite easy to put it in. Because just wanted to ask. But we've already touched on the fact that this rat is breaking literally every single workplace health and safety regulation and.
Oh damn it! It's in the movie.
Oh really?
It is. Damn it.
Whereabouts? I'll have to look it up.
So the scene where Skinner's on the motorbike and he's chasing down Remy?
Who's on the motorbike?
Skinner, the chef. Chef Skinner.
Oh, yes.
The real short guy. Yeah.
So Lord Farquaad.
There's this zoomed out shot, and there's a bridge, and the car's driving over the bridge.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They're sneaky.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it might have been Incredibles, which is the only film it doesn't appear in, because I know it's one Pixar film it doesn't appear in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh.
Anyways,
Incredibles is a damn good film. I'll say that.
Yeah. Moving on.
Yes.
Yeah. So, do we want to touch over the characters real quick?
Oh yes, that's a good idea. So cast members for this. Let me see. So we've got
Patton Oswalt, who plays Remy. I think he was great in this film, to be honest. I quite liked Remy as a character.
Quite like the vocal performance.
No, I think it was quite a good decision to cast him. He's got quite a familiar voice as well. You might have heard him in some other stuff.
Kind of looks a bit like Chris Pratt.
You know who he kind of looks like? He kind of looks like
I know
Samwise Gamgee.
Oh wait, what? Wait,
who's the actor for Samwise Gamgee?
I'm not sure. I mean, I did watch The Lord of the Rings the other day, so I probably should have.
Sean Astin. That's who he is.
So Patton Oswalt is Remy.
Yep.
And Linguini is played by who?
Linguini is Lou Romano.
Okay, I haven't heard of him before. But in terms of Linguini's character, I think he was quite a weak character, to be honest.
He's not one of the standout. I wouldn't say he's a weak character. I wouldn't say he's one of the standout ones for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I failed to sort of get attached to his character and his character. He doesn't really have an arc.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting what I was expecting in the final part of the film when the rats had been abducted, and so Linguini couldn't have Remy on top of his head to show him how to cook. I was expecting Linguini to actually just muster up the courage and do it himself, and actually teach himself, and then become self-efficient and because I think that would have been an arc for his character, because he starts off thinking he's useless, then a rat comes along, shows him how to cook, and then loses the rat, and Linguini's like, oh my gosh, I'm nothing anymore without this rat. And then he sort of like perseveres, and he's like, oh,
Yeah.
in fact, I can do this by myself. But he doesn't do that in the end, does he?
I think that would have been another way to go with the film, another path that they could have taken. But I think the film as it stands was also is also quite good how it is, to be honest.
Lou Romano is apparently in Incredibles.
Yeah, he plays the you know, when they're watching the tape of when Dad.
Oh, he's Bernie Crop.
Yeah, he's the old guy with the massive glasses and the mustache.
Okay. He's in quite a few Pixar films. He's in Cars as well.
He's got that quote. What's that quote? That he says. He's like, coincidence? I think not. That's what it is.
Oh, I have no idea. But yeah, so I think probably one of my least favorite characters in the film. But who's Linguini's girlfriend? I've forgotten her name.
Colette.
Colette, yeah, that's the one. So who's she played by?
Janeane. Janeane Garofalo. I don't really know how to pronounce her first name or her last name, to be honest. She's just one of those supporting characters. Again, she's nothing special, but I think she works in the overall, film. She provides a love interest to Linguini, and I think it works well.
Yeah, she's in a lot of live action things, so probably like one of the only sort of voice acting roles that she's done. She's in a lot of maybe weird movies, actually. Beauty of Letterboxd, you can just click on it and see how many, what movies they're in. I don't know any of these movies. Lots of comedy. Perhaps she was a comedian, but yeah, I think again, yeah, it wasn't a very strong character in particular for me anyway. But yeah, is there any other standout voice actors that we should give mention to?
Yeah, so we also have Will Arnett, who plays the voice of Horst, who is the sous chef to Chef Skinner. He's also the man where we'll get up his list of achievements here. He defrauded a major corporation. He robbed the second largest bank in France using only a ballpoint pen. And he created a home in the ozone over Avignon, and he also killed a man with his right thumb.
Yes, the thumb.
The thumb.
Yes, that's quite iconic, I think.
I think that's an iconic as well, yeah.
I remembered that one. I was like, oh, I remember this guy with his thumb.
Yeah.
But yeah, funny. Will Arnett, obviously, the Lego Batman, arguably one of the best Batman movies of all time. And obviously, you have Despicable Me. Despicable Me is in there as well.
I can't believe you just said that.
No, it was like a half joke. Don't worry.
Holy moly! You just offended so many people.
Lego Batman movie is actually quite good. But
I wouldn't say it's arguably one of the best. To be honest.
It depends who's arguing. Perhaps
if you're arguing, in your eyes, it's the best. One of the best. In my eyes, one of the worst, maybe.
That's a shame. He's also in Ice Age 2, apparently. But not entirely sure who he is.
Anyways,
in that, but he gets around. Yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to him as well.
Yeah. Peter O'Toole, I just want to give a shout out to as well, who plays the voice of Anton Ego, so Ego the critic. I think he also did a really good job. In this film as well. I think he was overall probably one of my favorite characters in this film. I really like his story arc, and I really like his character and how they built him. I think he's different from what we've seen in Pixar, and I found him quite interesting. And then I also just want to give a shout out to Ian Holm, who plays Skinner. Not really a standout character again, but I think it might be it might be important to just recognize his role in this film.
Yeah, it was a good performance, wasn't it? He was a bit you really hate him as the film progresses. So yeah, you got to give a shout out to that performance. But diving into some sort of detailed thoughts, I didn't have many, to be honest. I was sort of surprised how little I wrote.
I wrote so much.
Yeah, so perhaps you should lead it, and
Yeah.
I'll chime in every now and then.
Yeah. I just wanted to start off with saying that I love the tone of this film. I think it's one of the best that Pixar's ever generated, and it's set in quite a small scenery. It's basically set in like this few blocks of land in Paris, right? We've only ever seen
Yeah.
the restaurant and Linguini's apartment, and then further, um, towards the start of the film, we also see this old lady's house, but we didn't really see too much of that. So it's such a small setting, but I really like it, and I like how Paris has kind of got this night sort of vibe, and it's really quite a quiet area. I don't know. It's different from what Pixar's done before with their massive, scenes in cars with massive racetracks, and it's kind of like Toy Story in a way, where the protagonist is put in this small location, and it's like Toy Story where the toys are in Andy's room majority of the time. I don't know. I quite like the tone of the film. And I also just wanted to mention that this film was released a year after Cars, a year or 2 years after Cars, and the progress that Pixar has made in the animation style, I think, is just mind blowing. To be honest,
I agree.
I mean the physics of the fur on Remy and the water physics as well, I think were just incredible. I really could see it standing up to today, what they're basically creating today.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely the hair animations that set it apart.
Yeah.
In terms of how good like Remy looks. Like you couldn't have made this movie probably maybe 4 years before this one came out. You just couldn't have done it because of the hair animations.
No. And each time Pixar does something big with their animation in their films, they typically tend to make a new software because the software hasn't even been invented yet to produce the outcome that they want. So I think what they did in this film is they made a whole new software program just to put the fur on Remy. Like, isn't that just insane? Like, they had to create.
That is insane.
If you know anything about animation, Blender or something, they had to create a whole new program like Blender just to generate that, which just is mind blowing to me. Yeah.
No, I can't even imagine how you can create something that moves like that, with all of the hair and even nowadays because we have water in animation, we have animation that looks as good as real life, and it's just beyond me how you can sort of create that from scratch on a computer. It's just insane. It's mind blowing, and it's something that as much as I despise movies like, say, Moana, that I think are absolutely rubbish, I think story-wise, you still have to recognize, the people who worked so hard on, the 5-10 seconds of footage that they were assigned for 3 years of how they had to animate that meticulously. It's just brilliant. It's sort of like a praise that goes without saying in animated films. But yeah, even the rubbish ones, you just have to be like, so many people worked so hard on their small little piece of footage, to put, and hundreds of people did that in order to make an hour and 30-minute long film. So yeah, you got to recognize the brilliance that those people possess when they're sort of meticulously animating all those little particles. It's really beyond my small mind. But I don't know. You have a bit of experience in the design area, so you probably know a bit more about it than I do. But it's just completely beyond me, to be honest.
No, it takes a lot of time to animate, and I haven't really delved into it too much, but because I'm not that big of a fan of animation. But so much respect for the people who make these films. I mean, it would just take ages to do that sort of stuff, and I mean, they've been doing it for what, 25 years now. So they've produced some of the best animated films in cinema. So hats off to Pixar, really.
Yeah, goes without saying. Yeah.
I just wanted to jump towards the very start of the film where we see Remy and his clan of rats, basically his family.
Yeah.
They live in this old lady's house, right? And then when the old lady is sleeping, she wakes up and she finds out that these rats are stealing her food, right?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to touch on, why on earth is her first instinct to grab her shotgun and just like gun down these rats like one by one? Like, she creates a whole like 20 rounds in her ceiling just to kill like a rat. Like,
yeah, I mean, she brings the roof down, doesn't she?
and then later on, like, she runs outside while it's pouring down and she's got like this personal vendetta against these rats just to kill them. Like,
oh yeah,
who does that?
As they're running away. I feel like you've actually like knocked on a specific stereotype in these sort of movies. Like, I feel like this is a stereotype, you know. I've definitely seen it before with angry grandmas who go to grab like semi-automatic rifles to get rid of like small insignificant pests. Like, I've definitely seen this before.
I've seen it somewhere, right? Yeah.
It's not like as soon as she got the shotgun, I'm like, for some reason, I just accepted it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what happens in these sorts of movies.
That's Pixar.
I'm like, where did that come from, man? Like, who's created such a stereotype? Because I imagine, you know, grandmas will take their grandchildren to see movies like this, and look how they're being represented on screen. It's like warmongering, you know, rifle owning,
gas mask owning.
Yeah, madman.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Anyways, I found that kind of funny. It's not really bad. It's more so like a funny.
Oh, it's not a dig.
Yeah.
It's just funny. Yeah, it's just hilarious.
So moving further along, one of the first music pieces that we get in this film, who I just wanted to touch on, Michael. I think it's Michael Giacchino or Giacchino. I'm sorry, I don't really know Italian.
Oh yeah, good luck trying to pronounce.
Yeah, God, Millsy's going to absolutely destroy us for that. Anyways, I think the scoring in this film is just bloody fantastic. And if you don't know who, I'm just going to call him Michael, right? If you don't know who Michael is, he's also done some work. Michael G. He's also done work on Up, which is another Pixar film, another great film. Inside Out. He's also done Jurassic World. He's also done Rogue One, Doctor Strange,
Jojo Rabbit,
Jojo Rabbit, Spider-Man: Far From Home.
He did Rogue One.
He did Rogue One, and probably the most surprising one, he actually scored the original theme for Mission Impossible, which is like one of the most iconic themes in cinema, right? So I don't feel like we really hear of this composer all that often, but he's done some like big projects.
I don't understand how these sort of orchestral, like these what would you call them, like, I don't know, musicians, how they pump out so many things. Like this guy in 2019, this guy did Spider-Man: Far From Home, he did Jojo Rabbit, and then he did some other movie.
Yeah.
And then in 2020 so far he's done he's done 4 movies.
Yeah.
How do you do these people are like, they're mad.
It's really funny, right? It's like John Williams, who does like a bunch of stuff every year, and each piece he does is just fantastic. Like the quality of them is just great. I think what finds it so surprising for you is that you're probably comparing it to your everyday standard artist who, you know, drops an album each year, right?
Yeah.
And even then, some of the songs in their album are really short or they're really bad. And you've only got like a few standout ones, but no, composers put a lot of work into their albums and their releases, and they release so many a year, and they're all really, really good.
He's created some iconic themes.
Some really iconic themes. I just wanted to touch on him there, but you know, later on we'll talk more about the music segment. Because believe it or not, we're actually already at 40 minutes. Yeah, so the first piece of music that came in this film was, I think it's called Wool Rat by Michael G. And it's where Remy's exploring Paris, and he's scurrying through all the little pipes in the roof and stuff. I think that was quite a good film. And then we see him emerge from the underground, and he figures out he's in Paris, and the symphony picks up. I think it's quite a good film, good piece of work that he did with that. And just a little Easter egg here. If you remember this, do you remember a dog barking at Remy when he is sort of scurrying through the hallways and such?
Not specifically,
Not
but
specifically, but
it wouldn't surprise me.
yeah. So
No.
we see a dog bark at him, and we only see the shadow of the dog. But if you've
I think
watched
it's like
Up
Sid's dog or something.
recently, the dog is actually
Oh yeah,
Doug from Up. It's the same shadow. So
really?
yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
Easter egg.
Um,
Cheeky.
and I'm pretty sure Up was actually released after Ratatouille, so they did it like in
Mm,
advance. And you know how I was saying um, how Pixar films tend to reference future films in their previous film. So, like with
yeah.
Toy Story 3, we see the unicorn on Guinevere in what was it called? Onward.
Okay. Oh
Onward.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's like a previous one referencing. Yeah. So Up is a 2009 film, and this
Mm,
dropped in 2007. So it was prior to the release of Up, which I found quite interesting.
yeah,
Um,
that was cool.
yeah, so it was like a small little reference there, and then they went on to make him an actual character in the next film. Um,
Mm.
one thing I found quite funny is that when Linguini was asked how his mother was by Chef Skinner, um, he was like, "Yeah, yeah, she's good. She's not all right. She's." And then Horst walks past, and he was like, "She died."
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was quite a funny
I
moment.
found that quite funny.
Oh,
I
yeah,
actually really like Horst in this film. I think he's a really dark character, but he's one of those dark
yeah.
humor characters, which is
Mm,
arguably one of the best pieces of comedy dark humor. Um,
yeah.
no, I think it was quite good in this film. Um, I also wanted to touch on Gusteau, who plays a figment of Remy's imagination, right? Um,
Yeah.
and I think he was really good in this film because he kind of mentored Remy along his cooking journey. And again, how you said Linguini could have also had his own arc where he learnt to cook as well, and he realized that he wasn't just a useless garbage boy. I think it
Mm,
could have been quite good if this figment of Remy's imagination, Gusteau, actually applied to Linguini as well, because Linguini, spoiler, probably should have given spoilers like ages ago, but Linguini is the son of Gusteau. So I think that could have been quite a good arc that they explored in this film, and it's a
mm.
shame that they didn't. But again, this film's great on its own. Um, is there anything you want to touch on? I feel like I'm just talking, and talking.
No, no, I agree. I think the significance of Linguini being Gusto's son was, I feel like it was told to the viewer and then it was sort of rushed over. Like there wasn't much significance. Like we don't actually see Linguini's reaction to that news.
Hmm.
Like it's sort of just something that happens in the story because it does, because in therefore Linguini can take over the store. But I don't know, I feel like he would have taken over the store anyway because of how good he is at cooking. So I don't know, it was yeah, I think Linguini's character for me was a definite like weak point of the film. I know you wouldn't say like it was weak, but for me I think the standout character I think was the food critic.
Anton, yeah. No,
Yeah,
I'd
and
agree with you there. Yeah.
yeah, and in terms of Linguini and Colette, I there was something left desired. There was something else that I wanted to really get connected to those characters that I feel like could have been delivered through Gusto's storyline, like
Hmm.
perhaps give us a bit more development of Linguini's character, and his mum's died. He's living by himself. He doesn't know who his dad is. Like, I feel like he could have almost been like a main character, like Remy was. But I feel like Linguini's like a side character. But normally in these sorts of movies where you have a human and an animal friend, it's usually like both of them are the main characters and they're like helping each other.
It's interesting
Like,
you
that's a
bring that
common
up,
trope.
right? Because it makes you question who the actual protagonist of this film is. Like, who's the main character, right? And
Yeah.
in my opinion, it's Remy. I think Remy is the main character of this film. He's on all the promotional art of the film. He's the standout character in the film. So I'm pretty sure he's the main character, and it's kind of reminiscent of what we see with Star Wars. Is Luke Skywalker the main character, or is Anakin Skywalker the main character? I just wanted to take a guess who's the main character.
In Star Wars? Yep. Oh, it's Darth Vader.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't think it's Darth Vader, you're not a Star Wars fan.
George Lucas himself said it is Anakin Skywalker. It's always been about Anakin Skywalker. So, it's kind of one of those situations where we have two characters who are competing for, this title of the main character. And I think the only reason that Linguini wasn't the main character is because he wasn't explored enough. And I'm going to agree with you here because I think they could have done a lot more with his character. But at the same time, I think he also kind of stands on his own. I mean, they could have explored more, or they could have left him where he is now, and they decided to leave him where he is now. And I think he still turned out to be a great character.
He sort of looked like the guy from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Do you get my vibe there?
I do not get your vibe there at all. I mean, the nose maybe, but...
No, it's like, hang on, is this the guy from, is there a crossover going on here? No.
I'm trying to think of his name.
I have no idea. It's completely lost. I was just like, oh, it's the guy from...
It starts with an L. It's going to come to me.
It's the guy from that movie.
What is it? Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. It's going to annoy me until I find out.
Because, I just thought like they looked very similar. What's his name?
Flint Lockwood.
No, Flint, yes. Oh, that's right. Yeah. I got Flint Lockwood vibes from Linguini myself.
Completely different hair colors and like hair in general.
I mean, they probably do. I probably need to remind myself what this guy looks like, but regardless, that's what I wrote down, so I got to say it. I'm legally obligated to say it.
Fair enough.
I'll tell you another thing I wrote down. Sorry, it was, I think, the romance, because we're sort of touching on Linguini's character here, and there is an element of romance between him and Colette, but I feel like it's like given absolutely no character development, and to be honest, it sort of reminded me of Kylo Ren and Rey. but it's not that bad, but it's a similar issue in the fact that there's no chemistry, there's no lead up to the kiss, and it sort of just happens because I don't know, it's sort of convenient to the plot, I guess. But what were your thoughts on that? Because I thought that was a bit rushed.
Yeah, they didn't really build up to it all that much, right? But I don't watch movies for that, right? It's not one of the appealing things of a film to me. I don't go in and say, it's better have a goddamn good make out scene, otherwise I'm going to hate on the film, right? I don't watch films for that. So yeah, it could have been done better, but it's not going to annoy me in a way.
Yeah, fair enough. I think it just comes into assessing like the characters in the film for me. Like I'm with you there. As I'll go to bat for romances in certain films where I think the rest of the film is the weak point and the romance is the good stuff. If you know what I'm referencing here, you know me too well as far as Spider-Man films go. But romances in a film, like, they're not of particular interest to me either. But I feel like in terms of Linguini's character, it works in with his backstory and how I feel attached to him. But I feel like you could have easily given a bit of chemistry there to make the kiss more believable, because obviously, like, Remy the rat actually like initiates it, which is sort of weird to think about. But I was just missing a bit of lead up to that. I think it was one of the character moments that I feel like was a bit rushed. But again, I feel like I'm coming at the film from almost the wrong perspective here, because I think I expected Linguini to be a main character, but
there you go.
As we've discussed, I agree. I do think the main character is Remy.
Yeah, it makes you question it, right? You don't actually know who the main character is, and I think it's an interesting way of making a film, because mostly, you see who the main character is. I mean, I'm going to reference Shrek again here. Shrek is the main character of Shrek.
He is. That is definitely for sure.
Could you believe it? Shrek is the main character of Shrek.
Yes, and definitely yes, and to back you up with some cold hard evidence here, Lightning McQueen in Cars.
Yeah.
Woody and Buzz share the title in Toy Story, and so do Sully and Mike, I think, in Monsters Inc. So you either have like two characters who get like 50% of screen time each being the main protagonist, or you get just one. And I think I expected this film to be a 50-50 situation.
Kind of like a Buzz Lightyear Woody situation, right?
Yeah, and have sort of like a buddy dynamic. But I feel like...
I think that's what they were going for. But they fell short of it.
But maybe they just fell short with that, because you could have easily done two stories that interlinked. I was about to give a Blade Runner reference there, but you wouldn't get it. Oh.
Watch it there.
It's just saying the word interlinked just reminded me of a certain scene, but yeah. So the rat and the human, they could have easily had two satisfying stories that interlinked there, but I feel like it was almost like 25% of rat and human, wasn't it? Like, so
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
bit of a negative for me personally, but but yeah, different a perspective change would change that sort of rating. If you knew that was the main guy.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on something that a lot of people will find quite weird in animation, cinematography. Right? It's kind of like, how do you have cinematography in an animated film? And I'm partly going to explain it now, because the scene where we see Remy getting thrown around the kitchen, he hides in the sink and he gets brushed underneath the oven. I think that was a really, really clever scene, because you don't realize it until the end, or some people might not realize it at all. But it establishes the stage and it lets you know where the film is being set. We see all the different parts of the kitchen. And then we go outside on one of the little dining trolleys, and we see the dining room. So you don't realize it until after, like I said, people don't realize it at all. But it's establishing the scenery that we're in and letting the audience get familiar with the stage, which I think is quite clever. And that's essentially how cinematography works in animation films. It sets the stage and it lets you know where all the different parts are.
Yeah, I said this in our Cars podcast. I was like, the cinematography is great, but like there is no cinematography. But like it's just how it's it goes down to the screenplay, like where, because obviously when creating an animation film, before they even start any sort of computer generated effects, they're like, okay, how are we going to position the camera in this, and how are we going to frame this, and I could tell you, I think I could probably give you like a pretty basic layout of that kitchen just from memory, because of how they sort of how they tell you about it. Yeah, but to caveat that, I will say obviously like the most of the film is set inside the kitchen.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like I could probably give you a decent layout of Sid's room.
Yeah.
But then again, it's the same sort of situation
because we've explored that. Yeah. I think it was. I just wanted to touch on it because I think it was quite smart how they did it, and they showed the audience around the whole kitchen, in the restaurant. I think it was quite smart.
There was a good scene. Yeah.
I just wanted to bring up how is Linguini living in this trash apartment, right? But he has like a $1 billion view of Paris' skyline.
Yes, brilliant view.
I never understood that. Like he's got this massive open window, and then he's got like this really trashy apartment. Like,
yeah, it's probably like 95% of the cost of that place would probably be the view if it was real life.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah, you can imagine it'd be extremely expensive.
But then again, Linguini is probably and I'm not going to assume here, but he's not a billionaire or a millionaire. So
yeah, not in the start of the film anyway.
no,
Yeah,
no, but towards the end maybe. But yeah, at the start of the film, there's no way he could have afforded that.
yeah,
And moving on, I just wanted to touch on the scene where Linguini and Remy are trying to figure out how to hide Remy whilst he's cooking, right? And we see him open his shirt, and then we see him open his pants, and we get a top down view in his pants. And if you look very very carefully, Linguini is actually wearing Incredibles boxes.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That would be Brad Bird.
That would be Brad Bird's decision with that. And I'm thinking
Yeah.
now, is the Incredibles? When did the Incredibles release?
Before this,
2004.
I think,
yeah. So it's a homage to it rather than a future
yeah,
reference.
yeah,
No, I thought that was quite funny. And also when he enters the building, or before he enters the building, I found it quite funny how he was like, how confident he was. Like he was psyching himself up. He's like, let's do this thing. And then he opens the doors and everyone just stares at him. I thought that was quite
yeah,
funny.
and then he just sort of like shrivels away.
Yeah. Goes down to his like soup area.
Yeah.
No, I thought that was quite funny. And moving on to probably my favorite character in the film, Anton Ego, and we've talked about him quite a bit here. A few things that you might not have picked up on, but Anton Ego is in a way, if you're a kid watching this film, you would think of him as the antagonist, right? And there's a few ways that Pixar portrayed that. And one of the things they did is his typewriter. We get a lot of views of the back from the typewriter, and it's actually in the shape of a skull, if you didn't realize.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, isn't his office in the shape of a coffin
That's
as well?
the other thing I was going to touch on, yeah.
Yeah.
So clever Pixar has decided to plant these little references to, I guess, death in a way. I don't really see how death relates to evil. Yeah, I guess death relates to evil.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's
like sort of like the vampire vibe. He gave me like sort of vampire vibes. I've never seen the Hotel Transylvania movies, but he reminded me of the main guy in that. The main guy in that, I think he's a vampire or something.
Yeah.
But, he's definitely got a villainous, like
Dracula.
He's wearing all black. He's Dracula. That's the one. Yeah. So yeah, definitely sort of set up to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
But then he ended up being my favorite character in the end. So
yeah. No, I quite liked his turnaround. Le Festin is the next song we get, and it's once again by Michael G, my man. And it's the scene where, I'm just trying to think of it as now because we see it play off a few times in the film. It's also at the end of the film where we see, everything's happy and they've created the new restaurant, and Remy's running the restaurant, and then Anton Ego is like undercover now. I guess he's not a critic anymore because he lost his license to do that. But yeah, we get it at the end, and then we also get it halfway through the film as well. And I think it's probably the standout piece of music from this film. And if you've heard it before, it's quite an iconic theme. It's been in a lot of memes, actually. It's quite a meme song. No, I think it's a beautiful piece of music, and it's probably one of Pixar's best that they've ever done. It stands up there alongside, Life is a Highway, probably even better than Life is a Highway, to be honest. That's a very big accusation. Not an accusation.
Bold statement.
It's a bold statement. I would say it's up there with You Got a Friend in Me and all those sort of ones.
Oh my gosh, I better listen to
this.
You
better listen to it.
That's a very bold statement, my friend.
But it's a foreign piece of music, so a lot of people might not like it, but particularly I enjoyed it. Chef Skinner's frozen food plan is just horrendously bad. Let's talk about that. I mean,
frozen food plan.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's just bad news from start to finish. Can we talk about the fact that maybe this is what you're touching on, how they're sort of branching out into like microwavable food.
Yeah.
He's like, it's so funny that Pixar does this because obviously they're owned by Disney. Well, they're in partnership with Disney, or I don't know what the
it's like Sony and Marvel.
specifics are. Yeah, and so they're so technically Disney, one of the biggest corporations in the entire world, made billions of dollars, ultimately saying that this guy's evil because he wants to start a franchise and be successful, and he's chasing the money. And then here's Disney like reproducing live action films every single year, and
No, that's
I
quite
just find it
funny.
so hypocritical.
Yeah,
But they're always like, "Oh, how dare you want to make more money? It's not about the money. It's about it's about the people, and it's about the people around you. And you have to enjoy living in the moment. You can't chase money."
but you know what's even more funny? It's funny
Yeah,
because this is prior to Disney buying out Marvel, buying out Star Wars, and branching out
yeah,
hugely across cinema. So in a way, they've kind of become what they swore to destroy. No, I found that kind of
they have.
funny. Um,
They have.
but yeah, the frozen food plan. If you didn't really figure it out, basically, Chef Skinner's plan was to cage Remy, keep him as his slave, and Remy comes up with all of the new ideas for his frozen food. Like,
Uh,
I mean, let's be real.
he's
That's
not.
not going to work from the very beginning.
No. No, this guy really works as like just a stupid, idiotic, like crazy and overly aggressive villain.
Yeah,
He just works really well. He reminded me a lot of Edna Node, to be honest, but obviously
yeah,
she's not a villain. But
because he's
yeah,
short.
just yeah, yes, definitely Lord Farquaad vibes. Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Briefly, before we wrap up, if you want to talk about anything, let me know. But I think Anton Ego's monologue towards the end was just fantastic.
Yeah,
And him, talking about how anyone can be a cook, and referencing Gusteau, and then him talking about how he made a mistake with Gusteau's restaurant and how it's become one of his favorite places to eat. No, I really like the turnaround of his character, and I think that monologue is probably one of the best we've ever received from film in general. I think it was just great because you don't really see that all too often. I mean, an evil person becoming a hero. I mean, you see it a
yeah.
bit, but like it's quite rare in film. And no, I quite liked how his character turned around and became quite forgiving of Gusteau and Linguini and all of them. But that was the last thing I wanted to touch on. If you had anything else, you can.
Yeah, Eo's character was really the best part of the film for me. On rewatch, I did not expect him to become
Mm-hmm.
or to go through that sort of redemption arc. But it wasn't really a redemption arc, to be honest. It was sort of just a change in his perspective of life,
Yeah.
and I think it was a really, really good, like, well, not really a message. It's not really a message to everybody else, but for his character, I think it was really cool to see his transition and his perspectives before and his perspective after. And yeah, that monologue. Is it the monologue where he's talking um, about his mother and how his mother used to make the ratatouille, or is it like you
It's
talking
after
about
that,
the
so
very
it's
end?
like in the last few minutes of the film where we see it's him talking over the imagery of the film, and
Yeah,
the new
and
restaurant.
does it end on that? Does it end on
Yeah,
that?
that's where it ends. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I did think that was very good. I think I might have, yeah, yeah, they might have just been lost from my memory as to remembering it was Ego talking at that stage. I thought it might have been, Gusteau or something, but yeah, no, now that you've mentioned it, I do remember that, that monologue was quite great, and I do think that Ego is definitely the strongest part of this film. One thing I wanted to mention before we wrapped up is
Hmm.
the fact that these rats tied up an innocent health inspector and locked him in a safe. Um, and
And Chef Skinner.
yes, and then and then Chef Skinner as well. And I mean, if that's not false imprisonment, then I don't really know what is, to be honest. But but I just thought that was funny, but also outrageous. and
It's
obviously
unfair.
the rats are breaking every single health protocol, and this poor health inspector's just trying to do his job.
Right, yeah.
And he ends up being locked in a safe. But I wanted to ask this question of you, quite a serious question. So, say in real life there was this restaurant that
I would
went
not eat
viral.
there. I knew you were going to ask it.
But even though the
Rats can be as clean as they want, right? But they still carry infections and diseases.
And it's another sort of a plot hole that I found in this film was that obviously Gusteau's restaurant gets shut down, right? Because it got rats in it. But then they open up a new restaurant. They call it Ratatouille. They make the logo a literal rat, and now they expect to not get shut down by the health inspector again.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
Yeah, but I feel like it's just Pixar being like, and they lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
They're like, and then there's us in the audience being like, well, actually, that health inspector would have come along, and they're like, no, shut up.
Appreciate the film for how it is.
Yeah. So, yeah, just wanted to mention that. But those are my thoughts. I'm happy to go to the music segment now. I think you've mentioned 2 songs already.
Yeah. So this week we're going to put in Le Festine and Wall Rat, which are both by Michael Giacchino. Michael G, my boy.
Michael G.
I think a lot of the pieces of music in this film are great, but they were the 2 that really stood out to me.
Okay, so Le Festine.
Le Festine and Wall Rat.
And Wall Rat. Those are the 2 going into the Rewatch playlist. It's a playlist on Spotify. If you want to have a listen, there's a link in the YouTube description. So, who's going to go first this week? Would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Why not?
Okay.
To be honest, I think this film is a bloody masterpiece. And in fact, I actually like it more than any other Pixar film that's been released. It is my top Pixar pick, and surprisingly, it is for a lot of other people as well.
I know, I was surprised by that.
Yeah. I've always loved this film, and I think it's probably one of the most underrated films Pixar has produced. And for anyone that hasn't watched this film, I greatly encourage you to watch it. This and Incredibles are probably my top 2 picks for Pixar. But even more so, this is my favorite animated film of all time as well. And I've said why, so I'm not going to touch on that. But I think the idea for this film is just wildly unique, and we haven't really seen anything like it. I think the characters are fantastic. Here I am talking about them, and I just said I wasn't going to. But anyways, I think the characters are great. Remy and Ego probably stood out to me as being the best. Like I just said, the scoring of this film is incredible. I think it's beautiful. That's usual with Pixar, though. I mean, we see that each time. I think Michael Giacchino completely blew it out of the park. Story's fantastic, and overall, this is probably my favorite animated film, like I said. Look, I was going back and forth trying to decide whether this is an A or an A+, right? And I just said it's my favorite animated film, so it's kind of like I should give it an A+, but speaking subjectively, this film does have issues, right? But again, I'm going to give it an A, and I'm going to explain why. I like it more than Toy Story, which I also gave it an A. So this is like the highest A rating that I could give.
Yeah.
And I'm just speaking the fact because Inception is a greater film than this film, right? It's subjectively better.
Yeah, but then like as an animated film, you got to take into account like what it's trying to do.
Exactly right. But basically, what I'm doing with our rewatch rating is I'm putting all the films on the same basis and rating them in terms of ranking. So this is the highest animated pick I will give as an A. It's my favorite. Some of them might end up being an A+ because they're objectively better. But this is my favorite animated pick. And Inception stands above this as an A. It's a better A rating. Basically, what I do is I save my A+ ratings for the best of the best, like completely perfect films. So I couldn't justify giving this an A+ when it's not a perfect film. Let's be real. But no, it's the highest animated pick I will give.
Fair enough. It is definitely, you can definitely tell just, how you were explaining certain things in the film that it was like one of your favorites. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then, yeah, I do respect, obviously, like you got to take into account, like obviously animated films can only do so much, but they have a simple layout, and if they don't execute that layout perfectly, then you have to hold them back. But obviously, I didn't do that for Toy Story, but that's because I believe that it's one of the best,
Mm-hmm.
both objectively and obviously I love that film a lot. So there's a bit of subjectivity there as well. But for me, this film was sort of lacking in those iconic character moments I sort of spoke about at the start. And we've sort of explored, who the main protagonist was, and obviously, like I was let down by Colette and Linguini's characters. But overall, I think this is a very like tight story. So meaning that like there's not a lot in this film that could have been cut out. It's very very tightly crafted together and
Yeah.
it's well told. And to be honest, I think it's about as good as a film about a rat could be. And so, and it's definitely forgotten. Like you said, it's definitely underrated or
Yeah.
lost in time, similar to Monsters Inc. But I'm going to give it the same rating as Monsters Inc. I'm going to give it an A minus. And to be honest, I was thinking about giving it a B plus because a lot of the characters for me were lacking. But
Mm-hmm.
speaking about Ego and Remy, I think those two carried it to the A tier. I would have liked a bit more about Linguini,
So
but
was I.
perhaps
Yeah, I would have as well.
perhaps the runtime would have eliminated those sort of character moments for Linguini. But
Yeah.
but you can imagine that's why like comparing it. I wouldn't like to compare this movie to a live action movie because obviously like live action movies are 2.5 hours long and this is an hour and a half and there's only so much you
Hour
can really
50.
do. Well, it's actually quite a long one then.
Yeah.
To be honest, I didn't feel the
Neither
runtime that
did I,
much.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good film. It's a great film, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for me, I had to hold it back from the A tier. I can't.
Wait,
Maybe
hold
I
it back
have
from
I.
the A tier, or are you gonna?
I mean, hold it back from the solid A
Yeah,
tier.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm going to give it an A
No,
minus. But
I'm happy with that rating. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I was thinking like, yeah, you wouldn't have been happy if I gave it a B plus. But to be
Either a B
honest,
plus or an A minus, I would have been happy with. To be honest.
yeah. So but so A minus for me. I would recommend anybody who perhaps hasn't seen this movie in a while
Yeah.
and remember.
I feel like it's the premise of this podcast, right? We have to tell the viewers
Yeah.
whether they should rewatch this film, and we don't do it like often
Yeah.
enough. Yeah, watch this film if
we
you
gotta do it.
haven't.
Yeah, this one gets a rewatch approved rating
Yeah.
or whatever. So I feel like that goes without saying if it's a B up tier rating.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah. If it's
yeah.
below that, don't watch. It.
I feel like you don't. No, I don't know. That would just. I feel like our viewers get the fact that they shouldn't rewatch, Attack of the Clones, for example.
Yeah.
I feel like they're smart enough to know that. But I'm happy to leave it there for today. It was cool to talk about this film. Obviously, hadn't seen it in quite a while, so it was cool to revisit it and have a chat with somebody who's passionate about the film. So that was really cool. And if the viewers want to check us out on Letterboxd, you can download the app on your iPhone or your Android, and there's a link in the YouTube description that Janeane puts every week to go follow us on there, and you can see sort of like our reviews of not only films that we do for the podcasts, but like films we do just in general.
All
like
films I've watched.
Yeah. So, and I don't know about you, but I've actually just really enjoyed the app. I thought I was gonna like, stop doing it after like a week or something, but I've I've enjoyed like just writing down a few things about maybe a lot of things depending on the film, but but yeah. So if you want to like see our extra thoughts about something, or you're wondering what we think about some other movie, you can follow us on there and see all of our reviews, and we comment some funny things on each other's, and we have a laugh on there. So if you want to go check that out, that's within your power. But I'm happy to leave it there for today. If you don't want to say anything else, Jaden.
No, yeah, that was good.
No, so thank you for listening, everybody. to this episode of the Rewatch podcast. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram, you can do so at the Rewatch Pod. If you would like to subscribe to the YouTube channel, just search The Rewatch on YouTube. I just posted a new Star Wars video and Jaden doesn't like it, neither does Millsy, but that's okay. Next episode, I think we're doing Rogue One. I think we're continuing our Star Wars journey. Hoping to have a guest on. We'll see how that goes. But until then, thank you for listening and bye for now.
Catch ya.